If you still love listening to your CD collection at home, you might be wondering, should I stick with my traditional CD player or upgrade to a CD transport instead? Or maybe you're just getting back into CDs and you're not sure which one you should buy, a traditional CD player or a CD transport. Hi there, my name is Aaron, and over the last few months here on YouTube, I've talked a lot about CDs and CD players. And in today's video, I want to share the pros and cons of buying and using a CD transport instead of a CD player. Are CD players out and CD transports in? Is this the future of how we'll listen to our CD collection going forward? And lastly, do CD transports really sound better than CD players? Let's do a full comparison using the new SMSL PL200T transport to find out. Before we start, I've enjoyed using this SMSL transport so much that I actually want to make a series of videos about this product to make sure I cover as many possible angles as possible. In today's video, we'll be comparing it with a traditional CD player, while the next video will be a full comparison with my transport that costs 3 times as much. And that video, let me tell you, it's going to be fun for you, but maybe not so much for me. And lastly, SMSL's new budget CD player, the PL100, is headed my way, which I will also compare with this transport. So if I gloss over any details in this video today, just stay tuned. I'm sure I'll cover them in future videos. All right, I've spent the last 18 months with both CD players and CD transports, and I can't wait to share my experience with you. So let's get started now. The first pro with using a CD transport is upgrade flexibility. A friendly reminder that a transport does not come with the internal DAC needed to convert the digital information stored as ones and zeros to an analog signal that we can hear, meaning you have to use a preamp or amp with a digital input or provide your own DAC, which can be fun for those of us who already own a lot of DACs. This means you're not locked into a single DAC forever. If you want to upgrade down the road, you can swap out your DAC instead of replacing the entire player, giving you more flexibility in your system. A friend of mine admitted that he found the idea of using a CD transport confusing, and he understood it better once I compared it to using a separate preamp and amplifier instead of an integrated amp. Some people like mixing and matching gear instead of having it all bundled together, and buying a CD transport and a DAC separately is similar to people who like buying a separate preamp and amplifier for their stereo system. Now, fans of traditional CD players will argue that most modern players these days come with a digital output like this Yamaha player, which would allow for the same flexibility as using a transport and offer the ability to use the player with an external DAC for a cheaper price. This is a valid argument, so let's look at some other features this transport offers. The second pro is potentially better build quality. CD transports are typically built with higher end components and laser mechanisms, making them more durable and precise than traditional CD players. That means fewer reading errors and longer lasting performance. The PL200T has a pass servo system that reads discs faster than any other transport or player I've ever used. It also comes with this magnetic vibration damper to further improve performance. People often comment on my CD player videos that modern players today feel cheap and plastic, like they're going to break quickly. I don't think this particular Yamaha player feels cheap, but the drawer mechanism is something a lot of people think could be improved on with a lot of modern CD players. This Yamaha boasts to have a laser pickup isolated on a floating mechanism to avoid vibration and uses an intelligent digital servo system to compensate for any playback issues, which will satisfy a lot of people who want a simple player instead of a transport. But I really enjoyed dropping the CD into the SMSL transport, putting the damper and acrylic lid down, and it being ready to play instantly. As you see here, the disc loading time on the Yamaha is slower, which might be an annoyance to some consumers, while others don't mind at all. I also think it's cool that you can see the disc spinning on the SMSL transport, which is something I've come to appreciate with vinyl playback over the years. One last note, both of these players come with remote controls, but I'll be honest with you, the SMSL's remote feels a bit cheap and plasticky at this price point. Another pro with using a CD transport is they often offer more digital connectivity options than a traditional CD player. For instance, The SMSL, like many other transports, offer coaxial, optical, AES, EBU, and even I2S outputs, giving you more options for pairing with different DACs and high-end audio systems. A traditional CD player will be limited to an RCA output that uses the internal DAC and maybe one or two digital outputs like coax and optical, as seen here on the Yamaha. Timing is a very important issue when talking about digital audio playback. And a lot of transports are often designed with more attention to timing than regular mass-produced CD players. For instance, the PL200T supports a 44.1 kHz world clock and a 10 MHz standard or atomic clock with input impedance matching options of 50 or 75 ohms. This ensures minimal jitter and improves synchronization with your digital components. People who are particular about their digital audio playback appreciate this enhanced clock performance, which is not something that's often addressed or pointed out when shopping for your average new CD player on the market. One final pro is that CD transports sometimes have more input options than a CD player. A lot of CD transports will provide USB inputs, which allow for connecting another device like a streamer or a laptop or an iPad, which I have connected here. For instance, on the SMSL, there is a USB input that supports up to 32-bit 768 kHz DSD 512. Now, a lot of CD players come with another input, but it's usually to connect a thumb drive with stored files like this Yamaha player has here on the front. Before I talk about the cons of using a CD transport, if at this point in the video you're thinking, I wish I could just email Aaron directly and ask his opinion on which one I should buy based on the system I have, you can actually email me directly by signing up to my email list, which is the link in the first pinned comment on this video. Just click that link, sign up. Once you confirm, it will send you my personal email address. Feel free to reach out and I'll help you make a decision as to which one of these is right for you. All right, it's time to talk about pricing. The most obvious con when deciding between a CD transport and player is price. Not only are transports often more expensive than CD players, in this case the SMSL is $499 and the Yamaha is $379, but you obviously have to spend more money on an external DAC to pair with the transport, unless of course your preamp or amplifier has a digital input that you can use. The SMSL is the cheapest dedicated transport that I've used to date, and my hope is that more companies will get into the transport game, which would hopefully drive the prices down, which would allow more people that aren't familiar with using a transport to try it out at a lesser cost. Another important con when buying a CD transport for some people will be that they now have to make another decision as to what external DAC they should buy to go along with it, rather than folks that just buy CD players and have an internal DAC already built in. Also, a lot of people think all DACs sound the same, so if you fall into this category, I don't really see why a CD transport would make sense for you. And as mentioned before, an external DAC costs more money than people might want to spend. And the last con is simply that if you're just looking for an easy way to play CDs and don't care about swapping out DACs or need any fancy outputs or digital inputs, a CD transport might simply be overkill. If for casual listening, an integrated CD player gets the job done without having to buy any additional gear. After talking through these pros and cons, the next question I always get is, well, does a CD transport sound better than a CD player? Well, that's a complicated question, but I'm ready to walk you through my experience and explain what I've determined. One more thing to note, because I know a lot of people are going to ask, neither of these players have an issue with gapless playback, which is great news, especially for the SMSL transport at this price point. But whenever you're researching buying an inexpensive CD or DVD player to use as a CD player, always make sure that there's no gapless playback issues, which would insert silences between the tracks, which is annoying when listening to live albums or say an album like Dark Side of the Moon. But I was really happy that this SMSL transport did not have that issue. There are two ways we need to address sound performance testing. The first is using the Yamaha as an integrated CD player with the internal DAC versus the CD transport connected to my Dynafrips Aries 2 DAC. In this case, I preferred the CD transport with the Dynafrips performance over the Yamaha's internal DAC, as it provided more bass, more heft, and a larger soundstage. That's not to say that the Yamaha's internal DAC sounds bad, it's just that the Dynafrips help bring out new and interesting sound in the music to my ears. But then we test the Yamaha player using the digital output connected to the Dynafrips Aries, and at this point we're really comparing two CD transports to each other, and this is where things get interesting. First, I don't think your average consumer would hear any difference between two transports connected to the same DAC. But let's be honest. Why are we asking an average consumer to be listening to a CD when most of them are still streaming Spotify to a crappy Bluetooth speaker? I'm not exactly sure these are the people we need to be judging these products in the first place. Personally, when jumping back and forth between two transports using the same DAC, I was hoping to hear some drastic sound differences, but I didn't. Could some people hear subtle differences? I think so. Due to confirmation bias and the higher money spent, I think our brains want us to think we are hearing something different. But if you've never used a transport and are hoping it will sound 2 or 3 times better than a CD player, then I think you will be disappointed. But keep in mind, I'm connecting both of these transports via coax to the Dynafrips Series 2, which is playing through an H.H. Scott tube amp from 1958. Because the SMSL offers more digital outputs than the Yamaha, one could argue that it can use a better connection to a DAC to provide a better sound. But that's something I couldn't A/B test because the Dynafrips main inputs are coax and optical. My experience tells me that people who gravitate towards using a transport are folks who like the idea of separate components in their system and enjoy trying new things here and there to experiment with potential sound differences. I am this type of hi-fi nerd. I rarely keep one item in my system for long before I want to try something different, so the combining of different DACs with a transport to me is fun. Now there are a lot of people who think all DACs and all CD players sound the same, and the SMSL transport is not going to change your mind. So I'm not going to pretend it will and try to upsell you from what you're using in your current setup. If you enjoy using a CD player with the internal DAC or even a CD player with an external DAC, I think that's great. I'm not claiming you should ditch that setup and spend more money to get a transport so your system will be improved by 2x the price. The decision to buy a transport is really a personal one, but I don't think you're an audio fool, as some people have claimed in the comments on my videos, if you do want to buy a CD transport. You aren't buying snake oil, but rather a quality piece of gear to pair with a DAC you love. I think that's fun and shouldn't be judged any more than someone might judge a person for using a CD player with a 30-year-old DAC. To each his own in this hobby. But if you are someone like me who likes to change things around a lot in their system and enjoys using separates and are interested in a CD transport, the SMSL PL200T at $500 is a great option to consider. If at this point in the video you're thinking a CD transport sounds interesting but you're not sure which DAC you should buy to pair with it, I made a video about my top favorite DACs to pair with the CD player under $200. If you'd be interested in watching that video, you can do so by clicking here.